Hey, what's good? So, let's talk about agency for a second. Let's talk about all sorts of things. Personal agency and its relationship to more collective levels of agency. This is most especially important when we're talking about the issue of the quote Jews and where we place blame in things, right? I think people have made a big mistake. You don't understand how certain relationships work, right? You're looking at the nation of Israel because it is the quote Jewish state, and you think that they have given that state the power. Now they want to give that state a certain amount of power, and then you see that in all the manner of support that it gets. Now, the world has been flipping against Israel, but I don't like the rhetoric in which it's flipped against Israel because it's coming from everything wrapped up in the scapegoating process. You're blaming Israel for something that you thought was a great idea to hand Israel, which was the borders of the Balfour Declaration, right? And there just isn't such a thing as a two-state solution for this. The native Palestinians are not people that are state material, right? They live in a they live in a pagan manner, right? And I got nothing against people living in a pagan manner, but if you don't appreciate that there's a whole world happening around you, you're gonna get fucking swallowed by that fucking world. Right? Yeah, we colonized the Native Americans. There was a race to colonize the Native Americans. There was a race by the predominant empires moving to the west at the time to take all this land. Right? If we weren't making our push, it would have only been a matter of time before the Russian Empire may have wanted to park some naval vessels in Canada and have it. Remember, Alaska used to be Russian, and that's in North America. Russia has been in North America. We forget that. Except when we talk about Alaskan history, then we remember it. So, yeah, no, there was not a question, right? These people, they didn't develop, they didn't go out into the world themselves. They never thought to themselves, there's an outside world, it's just, did you just bank on everybody just being chill like you? Did you just, or did you bank because a long time ago your whole tribe lost its mind in your religion? Because, yeah, you're living pagan-like off the land and all that stuff, quite simple and perhaps feral. But, you're working off your dogmatic, superstitious, religious dispositions. Right? It's just like I haven't met a Palestinian who's a computer engineer. I haven't met an architect from Palestine. I mean, granted, who's met anybody from Palestine, right? Except for some college student with some kid who hasn't done anything yet. There's not one fucking adult from Palestine who fucking care to learn anybody's fucking language to fucking talk about the thing. And like I've said, Yasser Arafat, right? So now the world stage is just like, well, Israel is doing something here, and Israel's doing something there, and Israel gets this, and Israel did that. And it's implying that Israel just doing its thing in the international fucking community is evidence that they run the show. Okay, so the Soviet Union was thwarted by the second Israel came online. The Soviet Union was no longer going to be running the show. That had, like, there was never that, or the Chinese Communist Party with all of its investments in Africa and other parts of Asia. Like, no, like, we didn't get the Jews over there while the West was all feisty, right? The Zionists at the top, you're thinking of the Zionists at the top that have made Israel a scapegoat. Yes, those Zionists made Israel a scapegoat because Israel's got to go through an Armageddon script. They're scripted for Armageddon because of religious zealots that are making the chessboard, forcing the chessboard as such. Because nobody understands that the Book of Revelations is just playing off of the cycles of civilizational psychology and what it looks like symbolically at the end of days for your civilization. So, it's happened to various empires. We're not used to it ending in the manner in which we have seen these, quote, world wars. That's been a certain difference. But you gotta remember, Napoleon's been called the Antichrist, Hitler's been called the Antichrist, Obama and Trump have both respectively been called the Antichrist. So, what do you want from the Jews, man? Are you really the guy that just says the Jews and then all the Jews are this and then all the Jews, and so they can't live in your country and there isn't a country for them to live in. What you've done is that you've squeezed them out of Earth. You're saying you don't belong on fucking Earth. Those are fucking human beings, you motherfuckers. Okay? China's got a mythology, a very old fucking mythology about their fucking divine plan as an existing empire in the world too. Like, whether it rules the world or not, the point is that, like, does China not have a right to exist because maybe the emperor kind of believes in that a little bit? The emperor, the premier of the fucking, Chinese Communist Party who would theoretically be the emperor of China as a grander communist Asia. There we go. Sorry about that. I had to turn the network on and off. But I caught it, so I stopped talking and I don't have to repeat myself. I just have to remember where I was because I had to troubleshoot while driving. So people are standing on this historical thing they don't like, and it's blind. It's blind altruism of humanity. It's saying, look at us being the problem by asserting ourselves, and it's all about us believing that we're better than you because we're colonial and all that stuff, right? And when there's a spirit to your civilization, and that spirit is on a certain kind of growth and development trajectory, and it has irrational adversaries, it becomes increasingly difficult to have certain relationships with groups of people that aren't going to be able to pull through for you, right? Israel didn't create the Iranian state as its enemy. Literally, the global fucking media sided against the Shah and cut the world off in narrative from anything that was going to come in and save the day. And then, through the 80s, we had to live with that fucking mistake, and the media worked very hard to act like this was the better move and obfuscate the situation in Iran, as well as begin to suggest the controversy of Israel and Palestine as conflicts in the region continue to develop, it gets juxtaposed to the illusions of the benevolent state of Israel and all that stuff, and it's just like, look, there's no fucking angels in the world, man. No fucking angels. You can nitpick our collective sins against anybody else's collective sins all day. You're fighting for a way of life, right? And there's many ways of life that I'm not interested in fucking changing that are not mine. I don't want to fuck with Japan's way of life. I don't want to fuck with Russia's way of life. I don't even think I need to fuck with Ukraine's way of life. There's plenty of things, but there are things where I do. I want to fuck with the IRGC's way of making Iran live, because I don't think that's Iran's way of life. I am fine with us picking a fight with South Africa if South Africa wants to fucking, do, the white version of apartheid, or black, whatever you want to call it. Right? The point is, you got the white people being discriminated against, right? I may have bone or two to pick, so on and so forth. And then maybe one day, all of mankind will be interested in actualizing itself, and then none of this fucking nonsense we call government will be necessary. But until then, everybody needs their little nursery schools within their nations that are, protected as such, right? And whether you like it or not, you've got to develop. You'd be better served being a part. I'm just saying that the Palestinians would be better served being a part of Israel, stopping everything that they're doing, and saying, "Hey, Israel, look, we're gonna fucking chill the fuck out, and we're gonna let you in." Right? I think the international community would have your back if everybody in Palestine was just like, "Listen, we'll do one state with us involved, right? We would like some oversight to make sure that Israel understands, and yada, 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 and maybe it'll be a little bit bumpy or whatever, but we want to be citizens. Here's all of us X, Y, and Z that, let's take time to earn trust and prove we're not Hamas material or whatever. Go through those motions. And, and just have this multi-whatever society. because what else are you going to do, right? It's either that, or you have some sort of permanent global agreement that all the countries in the region peaceably manage the relationship between Palestine and Israel as is, in a manner that is nothing like the Islamic Republic, because it comes as friend, like Saudi Arabia just recently saying, acknowledging the state of Israel, which is bigger than big, right? And so, it's literally not genocide if you're defending yourself, right? And the only way you say that Israel isn't defending itself is that you reject the Balfour Declaration, which is 2 generations ago. Like, that's my grandfather's generation's decision that we're fucking living with, okay? And it's just like, the only way you take that back is that you go to war with Israel. And then what? And then where do the Jews go? Because you're doing this from a footing of they don't want to, you don't want them in your country, allegedly. And we got so many Jews in everybody else's country, and you don't want, just have Jews in your country, man. Just be serious about, the law, change your fucking parameters for welfare, right? So, that way, the Jews that do the welfare thing, like they found out in New Jersey, right? Under the way our big system worked, they're not doing anything wrong, other than it just legally costs that much. Yet this is all on the record, what we agreed to, not a conspiracy, not a secret. And you can't really touch them because they're not committing crimes and shit, right? At least no crimes that you fucking know of, per se. I mean, it's interesting the way that it works. But, you think that all the Jews are being treated special. And so you think you have to treat them the opposite version of special, right? You think that they have so much fucking support that it's okay for you to be this warrior against them and to use anti-them rhetoric and things like that. They will flip that script on you real quick because they want there to be scapegoats like that fucking lady cop in Canada that just fucking killed a rabbi instead of the fucking Muslim that was harassing the rabbi. Okay? So that's why I'm doing this. Because there's some serious bullshit going on. And it's not because I'm choosing Abrahamics. It's that I'm choosing fucking, people that I think by all accounts are probably just good men. Is it okay that I defend good men? And when I see bad men arise, I think the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu are not good men. I think that there are crimes Israel has committed that needs to liably be handled, right? Just like we handled the liability of Maduro, right? Oh, we stole Venezuela's oil. We did. They built their fucking apartments and office buildings out of styrofoam. Who stole who? It's fucking, when your socialist money runs out, that's what fucking happens. It's like what fucking happened with Cuba. That was developing fucking forever. That was developing during the Obama administration's decline. That was happening when we were fucking giving those kinds of ideologies fucking support. We tried that. And then we found out what you're really like, and also the fucking investment fucking blew up in our face and your face. This earthquake proves that you just shouldn't build that way. It's a Venezuela, literal house of cards, and you're going to blame Israel because America took out the guy who approved that all fucking was built when the anti-Israel guy was in charge, okay? Does that make any fucking sense to you? No? People are just fucking stupid. They're just fucking stupid. And they'd rather fucking be wrong on their course of preferred thought. When you spent enough time studying the Jewish conspiracy, you either figure out that they're trying to scapegoat the Jews, or you fall for that trap, which is well supported as a misguided truth. A truth with just the right amount of paltry lies to make you fucking go into the ambiguity of it all and just blame a whole fucking people getting wrapped up in the misery of it all. Do you think that's fucking fun for Israel with Iran's fucking missiles flying over their head? Do you think it's ever been fun for them in the fucking 80 years of their fucking existence? Alright? I hate how all of this fucking shit just leave it in this overarching whatever, right? And now I notice how much the fucking IRGC fucking runs with that to the nth degree, right? And they coincidentally are all about those fucking communist socialist Jews. Like, they like the fucking, like, Hasidic guys that are anti-Israel. You remember Ahmadinejad a bazillion years ago? If you do, you don't. Whatever, right? You know? And that's a great deal of the way that that the anti-Israel sentiments, right? Like, yeah, the anti-Israel Americans, they hate being called anti-Semitic, right? But it's gaslighting, because their rhetoric is anti-Semitic. They're just changing Jew for Israel, and then going into like the absolute vitriolic diatribal blood rage about it. Wants us to bomb them back to the Stone Age instead of Iran, and we've forgotten various principles of American values. Right? So say what you will, say it's just political optics, but you know, like if part of the Trump administration's thinking on this matter is that there's many conservatives and liberals in Israel, just like America, or America's truer ideals, and none of those kinds of things are in the false representative, the forced representative government of Iran. Then why would I side with Iran? Right? Look at Ukraine and Russia. That one's a lot harder, because both the Ukraine and Russia are similar to each other and similar to us in so many ways. Very fucking different. You know, I fucking hate how I feel sometimes, being like I kind of want Russia to win. Right? Is sometimes how I feel about it. Right? But, just like I can't fucking take back Khrushchev's mistake, you can't take back the Balfour Declaration. Okay? Whether you like it or not, might is right. If, like meek Christians are not the reason why Christianity has its predominance. Christians who never gave up pagan strength, the pagan heroic ethos, and poured all of their true moral sense of goodness into it, those are the kinds of strong men that have set the world in the way that it is. We've weakened ourselves tremendously. I mean, I think we're gaining our strength back because now it's been a few years. A lot of things are turning around. People that were of a certain age in 2020 that were maybe going woke, changed their minds after watching all sorts of behavior and have gone through their own progressions of which way they want to go. Right? And things that are the most unfortunate is that because we've gone through many thresholds of principle change, that there are many opportunities to wake up in consciousness for a great deal of people that are now missed, right? Because we've already gone through certain factors of change in the world that you were meant to that was meant to keep you in the quest to understand things better and to eventually find the path to oneself. And too many people got lost in the sauce of the trajectory of the world, and you're watching them go in those various directions. They may be in a more sophisticated narrative place, but they're still going to go with a certain level of the popular consensus, the profane-minded, right? That goes, and if you understand what profane means, you'll understand that you could be a religious person who doesn't say one nasty word and be of the profane. Right? This is why we have the problem with the Epstein files. Because Jeffrey Epstein has his relationship with not just Israel but Turkey and other aspects of the world, really, in the Middle East, right? I know about things like the cult of Baal Lilith and stuff like that, because I knew about this shit before the emails came out, right? Because of how long I've been doing this. And the release of the Epstein files. It's another like watermark moment where you either were here and had the chance to not just explore these things, right? Like the thing is that you're getting the revelation of the enemy, right? But you haven't gone through the revelation of the self, so it becomes this unreal supervillain that you don't know your own fucking power, and you're just waiting for them to find the right guy to order you to be enslaved or dead, right? Everybody is worried about being enslaved or dead. The enslavement being involved with being taken in body, put into a custodial situation, and the state legally and lawfully having its way with you and doing all sorts of horrible things to control you, right? By determining in their language that you are worse of a human being than you actually are to justify doing horrible things to you. You know, imagine just saying that a heathen white man of my disposition is a rapist. Therefore, I get arrested one day for nothing else than being myself, and they castrate me, right? There's men that they're terrified. This is a horror fantasy that runs through their minds all the time. They're worried about, you know, Jewish Nazis fucking, you know, castrating the goy. And, and at the end of the day, we have to return to understanding our own agency. Because part of the reason why this works as a scapegoat is because most of the, quote, Jews in question are converts that are true believers, and that's why it's a scapegoating, right? There's the bloodline Jews, the non-bloodline Jews, and the elites that are above them that may be out as Jews or not, because they will just use the word Jew because their power players are called rabbis. But rabbi is made into an exclusive word for a Jewish teacher, but that word for teacher that is rabbi predates the Jews. And I'm not saying the Jews stole that, but I am just saying that part of their tongue is also that word. So, the long story short is that if the subtext of your thesis of your like reporting on things has to fucking depress me with the perpetual hopelessness of Jewish supremacy, Israeli control of the earth, I'm not gonna listen to you. Because they're just desperate to survive, and they're pulling off as many stops as they can because their existence is threatened as the small country that they literally are. Their country has no leverage. You understand that their country wouldn't exist if we weren't supplying them with guns. Alright? Their entire, like all their tanks, all their fucking airplanes, all their fucking anti-aircraft, their whole kit and caboodle, we're supplying like fucking, what, 85 fucking % of it or some shit? I'd imagine maybe like, fucking whoever, I forget which country Malay is running, like maybe before, like during the Biden administration, who was Israel's friend during the Biden administration? Anybody? During the Biden administration, how much money did we give Israel? I think we were giving them, I think Biden was giving them money too. Right? And so, don't let the Democrats fucking fool you into thinking that they're actually anti-Israel. They just don't want this vicious crowd to eat them alive. And they know that you're still a stupid, vicious crowd of savages. And so they're going to lie to you, and you deserve to be lied to because you are actually vicious savages that are low IQ, and I've seen it. I've seen it! And if you're not low IQ, you've wasted your IQ on communism. Or you've wasted your IQ on capitalism, to be honest with you. And like I said in a prior stream, it's perfectly fine if there's communal economy and capital economy in your free market system, but it should be a free market. Capitalism is not a free market, neither is communism. Both sides fear the free market. And I'm not going to trust a communist. And it's a different standard of trust with capitalism. So when I don't trust the capitalist, it means something different. Especially because the capitalist, unlike the communist, wants to pretend he is free market. Because he wants to pretend that it means the same thing. Just like the communist wants to pretend that eventually we're going to be a cashless society. Or, a moneyless society, because, we might be going to digital money, they say. I think we might have a big digital money system. I don't think it's going to replace cash, but I think when they bring it online, I think there will be an interim period where perhaps we use cryptocurrency as a safety net while we transition to a treasury note-based paper currency. That could work. I don't know. And I don't know what ultimately this president either wants or will be forced to do by the zeitgeist of the country. Because not everything that is not you imagined, how a president you may have liked and hoped for was going to be, is because of a conspiracy. It's because maybe you don't understand things, right? Because as a conspiracy person, I understood the first 3 years of Trump 45. I understood it very well. I was such an avid supporter. I used to make all these videos with my prior channel, the old me, the way I looked, everything else, and I would have like a Trump-Pence fucking thing behind me in the old way that I had my studio room set up. By the end of 2020, I had taken that down, and I had begun a shift towards the attitude that I've been holding to this day. My heart has to weigh things a certain way, right? And when I saw the world change, when I saw how people changed, when I saw how government changed, it changed my feelings at least about how we talk about values in anarchy and natural law. Because the context is different, right? Old narratives about the problem have passed through an age. Now there's new narratives about the problem. New demonstrations based on what is also a system that is doing better. And you're seeing it better. You're seeing more, you're seeing more exceptions of police corruption instead of police corruption being the rule. Up till 2020 and such, we were seeing police corruption elements that were the rule, right? Some of it from Republicans, a shocking amount of it from Democrats, and that was waking up a whole lot of people, right? And we've been going through that this whole time as we've been watching shifts, as we've exposed the discrimination in justice systems in different jurisdictions, right? As well as things that will always be very interesting, like when you look through the details of the Carmelo Anthony case, for instance, and if you are shallow, you look at the all-white jury, and that's all you need to know. And then if you are deep, you actually looked at it and you found out they couldn't find one black person that didn't have a racial bias, which that and they were very open that, like, no, I'm not going to convict a black man, right? So that is actually called jury nullification. Jury nullification is what you do when you want to get out of jury duty. Jury nullification is what you do when you want to say that you are not going to like me on this stand because of my biases about this, right? It's just like, like me, I would, like, if weed was still illegal, if I was sitting on the stand with somebody on possession charges, or sitting in the jury for, when if I'm being evaluated by the lawyers to say, do you want to sit on this jury, right? I said, like, oh, I'd love to sit on this jury because I'm never going to convict a guy for basic possession. If that's the only charge against this guy is he was possessing a whole lot of pot, I am not going to fucking convict him for that. He is innocent in my fucking eyes. And that's jury nullification. It's one of the biggest things they don't want the average profane citizen to fucking know, is one of their civic rights that is part of their checks and balances when they are so unlucky as to have to put time out of their fucking day to get barely paid to sit in court for X amount of time. There is no escaping freaking traffic at this hour. Anyway. So yeah, the the Jews did not ruin Venezuela. The Jews did not um, kidnap president of Venezuela. Like, if you're just saying that, you're a fucking idiot. Kidnap, like, you know, that's getting into, yeah, sure. If you want to talk about it, like, government, if you have been in office and another in one government goes after another government like that, no, you haven't been kidnapped. You're not just some average fucking guy, right? And you don't run around making threats. You don't run around like Venezuela's been a bad neighbor, you know. Even if other governments like them, like apparently like there was that relationship between Venezuela and Nicaragua, right? Right? There's just too much fucking pessimism. I can't handle it anymore, man. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And I don't believe people are going to magically leave you alone simply because you're in a state of doing your natural law thing. And like, I'm sure somebody in Palestine has made that argument, and it went horribly for them. And then we're supposed to like answer the prayer of God and be the wrath for them not taking the personal responsibility of actualizing themselves from a loose assortment of backwater tribes into a civilizational machine. That happens because you're not interested in sacrificing any of the way that you live at all, right? Let's see, yeah, I'll get off here. I'm stuck in more traffic on the bridge. So annoying. Alright. So every nation that is having strong development of itself has very good schools, businesses, or competent government structures, things like that. I mean, like, just plenty of private businesses that are exploited by the Chinese Communist Party, right? The Chinese Communist Party is it's got so much fucking capitalism in it that it's kind of more of just an liberal authoritarian version of America. Where America was kind of a conservative authoritarianism that had kind of the crazy woke authoritarianism that made no sense to anybody. But one way or the other, their communism is just we're like America's economy, but with more central planning, right? And they may have struck a good balance that makes sense for them. Like, I don't know how much of whatever kind of republic's going to work for for them that operates more, quote, capitalistically. whatever. I mean, that's the way that they are. I don't know if that means anything good for, you know, Westerners being over there and everything else. You know, plus the alleged factors of their population collapse. It's just like, regardless of whether, you know, it's fine. You can find some international Jew from communist China. Fine, you found one. Congratulations. You know? Oh yeah, and he was very wealthy and he did money this way and that. It's just like, okay, and everybody bought his shit. All right? Personal agency. It's just like, you wanted it. You know, this is like, you know, like this was a big point. It's like, I don't know, a lot of people just don't know what the hell's going on with Tucker Carlson, a lot of people say, right? That he has gone down this line of fucking thinking. And he certainly isn't going down any traditional lines of thinking that gets into Israel's suspicion that are just like a lot of other Americans. Like, I don't know, he's going in this weird fucking, he's going in a very weird direction, you know? He had a great interview with Owen Benjamin, and I'm only hoping that maybe he understands a thing or two from his comedy, right? Because this kind of extends from Owen's comedy of the idea of, like, do not hurt them, right? Right? Like, because he was having so much fun making fun of liberal Jews, right? Like the ones bringing the woke smut, the ones that were used to drive anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany. And then he got well ahead of the game intuitively by making sure that through the course of being the guy doing the ouch, and rubbing the hands and going hard on the Jew, he was also like, don't hurt them. Right? Right? And then would work off of that, and, you know, and would see somebody talking in a way that was going to bring too much harm through the course of all of this shit, right? Because of course we have important, you know, there are important people in his world, and, like, you know, and like he would like use guys like Toronto Jew Bear as a token, and, you know, and guys that love him just like, yeah, use me as a token, it's all right, bro, because of the understanding that's there, right? And so, yeah, that should extend to everything. There needs to be a certain level of humility that you haven't pinned the tail on the monster properly. You think you have because you're well researched on a situation, and even particular names on a situation, and this, that, the other thing, but yet still, I don't think it's fair unless you're fucking spending the time there to make that determination about them as a people, right? Or at least spending enough time listening to people there. I haven't seen enough, just because of some individual fucking bad behavior, right? Of the widespread fucking diverse kind of attitudes, opinions, and everything else of, you know, Jews. Like, oh, you see one group of Jews that's not very fucking liking of Christians, and then all sorts of fucking Islamic Republic jihadi fucking sympathizers and apologists will be like, see that Jew spit on a Christian in Israel, fuck Israel, bomb them all to hell for that. It's like, that's like Carmela Anthony stabbing you in the heart for being shoved after being obnoxious, right? You know, the Christian blindly went to Israel thinking that all the Jews were just gonna fucking love them for how much Zionism they fucking love, because they're Jews in Israel, and why would they? And so, You know, she went over there and fucking did a whole bunch of shit with people that don't understand. And, you know, people stepped up on her for being obnoxious with her faith on the street in front of them and all that shit as a foreigner and everything else. And, you know, I wouldn't fucking, I don't know, that's fucking, regardless of whether I think it's wrong what you just saw in the clip, you know, that he did that or whatever, but there's plenty of that I see around here. There's plenty of that's seen in other fucking countries. You're just nitpicking, issues, right? You know, like, what if that's against the law in Israel, but you just can't enforce, like, that law all the time of, oh my God, like, okay, you got spit on, and you know that you are kind of in the wrong, and so even though, like you're in the like the socio-culturally wrong, even though he fucking assaulted you by spitting on you, and like you may have a fucking case, but it's just too fucking small to bother. Especially for you as an outsider, you have no reason to fucking spend any fucking time going through court. You're visiting to fucking virtue signal to your church back fucking home. And he kind of knows that. Right? So no, none of that fucking impresses me by people that want me to fucking hate Israel. Okay? I don't fucking do that on those standards. Right? So as far as I'm concerned, Palestine's just gotta fucking join Israel. Plain and simple. Palestinians treated equally based on their merit and their behavior. Merit and behavior. Whatever that standard is for, you know, Palestinian Israelis. There are Palestinian Israelis, just like there are Muslim Israelis, atheist Israelis, so on and so forth. Right? Because whether you have a one-state or two-state solution, you're still gonna be fucking bickering over, you know, sacred holy sites. And considering all of you fucking, you know, root from the Abrahamic tradition, you might as just fucking well let the Abrahamic tradition have it. And you know, forget about fucking doing the thing. Because I'm sick and tired of people asking me to do things that just make things worse. And I personally think that that's the simple answer that makes things better. But if the Palestinians don't agree, because I think the Israelis would find a place for agreement with that. But it's going to take a while. I'd imagine it's going to take quite a while because you have to create space between, what is it, Hamas is the fucking group within Palestine, right? to make sure you've got a trustable population that doesn't want to do the Hamas thing, right? I don't know how many fucking 12ers are among Palestinian Muslims, because obviously if you're a 12er, you're gonna be a fucking problem. It's fine if you're a Shiite, Mohammed Pahlavi, the last Shah of Iran, was a Shiite who was overthrown by radical 12ers who are also Shiites. It's kind of like, if you get like a Presbyterian type of Protestant fucking Christian president, and then a fucking fundamentalist fucking, pastor runs a political party and puts in a candidate of his choice who's fucking crazy about the second coming of Christ. And that's what Iran's been dealing with. Now, and that's why I have no fucking respect for the left, because that's what they're defending. They're defending the Islamic equivalent of a fucking, like, redneck, bigoted fundamentalist from the Bible Belt of the fucking United States, right? Which is everything they've projected onto Trump and everything Trump would rather overthrow. I don't like being retarded. I don't like going gung-ho, right? I'm trying not to fucking run through this whole situation going like, woohoo, we're at war, right? I'm not that guy. But if my heart does also look at the fucking conflict and say, to go to war as such is the right move, right? If that's sitting in my heart, assessing the situation from just, this is the world, well, then at the very least, I am going to talk, right? Because I know who I don't want to see suffer, and I know who I do want to see suffer. And I have to talk through that, because I can't just point at certain people and say, those are the people that should, and those are the people that shouldn't suffer. I can't fucking operate judgment that will be there, looking, saying, you know what? I heard Steve, and he doesn't know that I heard him, and this is coming from Senator such and such. And so Senator such and such writes down in his notes, all right, based on what I truly know and what I heard from Steve, I'm gonna fucking change the rules of engagement to look for X, Y, and Z. And we're not gonna target these men. We're gonna target these men. Because I learned something that I was able to personally verify, especially with my super secret CIA intelligence, that I being one of the guys who knows which is right and which is wrong. Yada, yada, yada. Right? And, and who knows? And then something goes on like that, it happens. Because part of the reason why I was originally very strongly supportive for 3 years of Trump 45 was because so many things leading up to that in the conspiracy verse where I said, shit, America should not do things like this and should do things like that. Trump came along running on a platform of doing things like the way I fucking said in many respects. And it was worth it to fucking, be supportive. And so, this is me doing what I do. And to me, this is 20 times more powerful than casting a vote. Because it's just making the world as such. social media in many ways is almost like a third branch of Congress. A Senate, House, and then literally anybody who wants to fucking publish in the media, who has no fucking legislative or executive power, or even judicial power, but is just part of the goddamn fucking conversation to be heard by Congress. Granted, they would have to know to look, or you would have to fucking force them to be aware of it by maybe emailing them your bid. Like, Senator such and such, this is what I have contributed to the national conversation. Anyway, I gotta go take care of picking up some provisions for work tomorrow. I shall catch you guys later.